Okay, for the second video for our class today, you should have brought in your research paper folder for class, and inside each envelope, you should have 4 or 5 index cards. And each one of those index cards should have a letter and a number on it. The letter would tell you from your bibliography which source you found it, and then the number should just tell you, what number of source that is. But the number is important. So those should be inside all of your 5 envelopes. I'd like to tell you that if you put the time and effort in last week, that you're kind of on, your momentum, nice vocabulary word, is rolling in a great direction because your paper is starting to write itself. So today, what I want to teach you all is just a quick crash course in how to make an outline. Now, I'll say this again. If you took the time to do the research and you take the time to do the outline, your paper is written. And so you'll be able to sit down with your outline and your research folder and just because you're going to know your path, you're going to know which research cards to put in, you're going to know when to put them in, okay? So each one of you, Mrs. Pennell will hand out a copy of an outline that I actually used in college. It's old school, where I wrote a paper. Believe it or not, I was for year-round schooling. That's before I homeschooled my own children, clearly. But, and so you will want to keep this because I want your outline to look pretty much identical to this, okay? Your paper will obviously be different, and you might have A, B, and C, whereas I only have A, B. That's all fine. But as far as the elements of it, the topic, the thesis, all of that, I want your paper to have that, just like this, okay? So let's get started. At the top of your outline, of course, it's going to you're going to type out topic, okay? You've already picked this. This is not hard, so you're going to write your topic right there, okay? The next line is going to be your thesis. Now, when you're typing up your outline, this portion might actually need to wait to be filled in until you're done with your outline, okay? But if you already know your thesis, then by all means type it in there. Now for mine, my topic is year-round schooling. My thesis was after weighing the advantages and disadvantages, it became evident that a system of year-round schooling benefits both students and educators in many ways. Okay, so you can tell from my thesis that I'm writing about year-round schooling. I'm going to tell you that it benefits students, and I'm going to tell you that it benefits educators, okay? So notice on mine, after you've got your thesis, you're going to have Roman numeral 1. Roman numeral 1, just like mine, will be at the far left side of the paper. Now you'll notice mine is the historical background, okay? Some of you, we have talked in class, will need some historical background. And I hope that we talked about this a little bit last week. We tried to identify if you did or you didn't. You might need, I remember talking with Jacob. Tell us what the Constitution, what is the law of the land currently on the books regarding gun control? Define veganism. Define, trying to think for Emma, what is a hijab? Why do women wear it? And that might be your first point. So if you need a separate paragraph to just throw some definitions and background information, feel free to do it. So you have 5 subpoints that you've researched. This can be like an intro to, it's not your introductory paragraph, but it is your first paragraph. So really it's like buying you free space, okay? So if you need historical background, or you might call it definitions, okay? whoa, definitions, okay? Now, you might not have any index cards to support this yet, okay? But what you would want to do is after the Roman numeral, then comes a letter, okay? So the pattern for a true outline goes number, letter, and it keeps getting pushed in, okay? So here would be my letter, and mine was the history of school. Which I don't know why I'm writing this up here. You were holding a copy. All right. And B was year-round options. So what I've actually done is given the history of why school used to run 9 months, and then you may not be familiar with the variety of ways schools do run year-round choices, okay? So, but for you, yours might be the history of the burqa and the hijab and why they wear it, all right? If you're not covering it later in your paper, okay? Some of you might need to have a definition right off the bat if you're arguing against abortion. You may want to be very clear about what kind of abortion you're arguing against, right? Because it's common nowadays to assume we're all on board, right? It's a false assumption, but that we would all be on board with abortions in the first 20 weeks. And the only ones we're debating would be the last 20 weeks. But maybe for your paper, you're saying it's totally wrong. So you need to define abortion. You would need to talk about what laws are on the books already as federal law that everyone must abide by, if that makes sense. So, so this might be a paragraph you don't have research paper or we don't have index cards for it. That's okay. Just keep adding paragraphs, right? We're going for length here. Okay? What you might notice, though, is that we're just going to stick with the history of school, okay? You may or may not know this, but the reason the school has been September to May is because of the farm schedule. It allowed kids to do harvest with their family, and it allowed them to do to plant in the springtime as well, and then to be home over the summer to help out on the farms. So, particularly back in the day when students would have to travel long distances to get to the school, or maybe even stay in a boarding school for the year or the week, what have you. So, what you'll see is that, okay, Roman numeral, capital letter, and now I come in even further with a number, okay, a cardinal number, a non-Roman numeral. Anyways, 9-month calendar. So this is when I would say, why do we have it? And then a 2 is the year-round calendar. What does that look like? Okay, now notice, after a year-round calendar, I have the parenthesis with the letter and the number. Guys, that's your index cards from research, okay? That is where I alert myself. I have research or a quote that will back this up or add to this point. So on my outline, I put it right there, okay? And you may have research, definitions, laws, all of that stuff that you find goes better in this paragraph, okay? So what I want to show you is what you're going to do beyond this historical background definition paragraph, okay? You're going to sit down with your very first envelope, the one that you think should be first discussed, and that's going to be your Roman numeral 1, okay? So that's going to be where we talked about your subtopic number 1. All right? And you're going to get in your envelope, you're going to pull out all of your index cards, and you're just going to read over all of them, and you're going to ask yourself, what is the logical order by which these should go in my paper? And what smaller topics or points are they making? Okay? So you might have, for example, if you look down on my outline at Roman numeral 3, advantages. Point A is the advantages for students. So I've got 6 advantages for students, and 1 is retention, and then you can see I have A1 and G1. So that tells me when I'm starting to type about retention, I'm going to want to go to that envelope and I'm going to find A1 and G1 in the envelope. But I'm actually going to put them in the order that I need them. The second advantage for students is that it keeps their interest better because they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. And I have an index card to go with that. So if you look at it, every one of these parentheses is an index card. Now, please know my paper was, I think, 10 or 15 pages long. So you can see I have a K. I was way down the alphabet. You are most likely, remember, if you have only 7 sources, will have A to G. All right? But the easiest thing to do, again, is pull all of them out of one envelope. Look for commonalities, common points under your subtopic, okay? So I know I pick on Susanna and her topic a lot, but I feel like it's an easy one that I can just kind of make stuff up of. So forgive me, Susanna, if I'm way off base. But she had talked about, let's say her subpoint is the health benefits, okay? So she's going to have, maybe the first point is there's lots of benefits for your heart, okay? And she's got 2 note cards for that. And then there might be benefits for your weight, okay? But interestingly enough, maybe what she found was that there's different benefits for male weight versus female. I'm totally making this stuff up, okay? That's where your numbers come in, okay? You'd have male, and then she'd have a card, and female. Okay? And then once you've used all your cards, you move on to the second subpoint, which is going to be all the way back to the left-hand side, Roman numeral 2. Okay? There are no complete sentences on an outline except for your thesis. Okay? But I want you to spend some time thinking about your thesis because sometimes on papers that are longer, it's a little harder to construct because to simply list all 5 of your subpoints can sometimes work, but sometimes it's a little boring. So you may want to just figure out ways to take the overall picture of your paper. All right? So a couple of notes about outlines. Actually, I can see that I'm already at 13 minutes, so I'm going to pause this.